And I ended up just making myself a little utility node, which is really awesome about Substance Designer, is that you can just make your own nodes and things like that. And so I have one right, where do I have it? Right here. Nope. Right here. And so here's my little node that I created. I got a little drop down, and you can see that, well, in this case, I'm working with iron. So I have iron. I select iron here. And what it's doing is, and if we look at this, it's feeding this value iron. It's feeding it right here into the diffuse color here for my material. Now I do have this little levels here. I don't want to throw you off. I'm not doing any type of level operation. What I did was to save space on this is these values are at 16 by 16 pixels, so like super tiny. And if you have this set in your graph, this is a little quick tip. If you have this set to relative to parent and you feed this through your diffuse, I don't change that anywhere in the pipe. If I feed this all the way down, my diffuse texture will be like 16 by 16. So one of the things that I do is I'll take a node like this levels node here and just place it. It doesn't do anything. There's no value. I'm just passing it through. I have it. I just hit D to dock it. With that selected, basically what I'll do is I'll change this to relative to parent. Okay, and so it's going to go and look at the relative parent to that. Now this guy is actually set to absolute. This graph is, because I didn't want that to change. So I didn't want to have, like, I'm just using this small pixel value. I didn't want to have like a 512 by 512 image in here, you know, so that's why I did that. So this is an absolute value. So if you have an absolute value graph node that's in and it's piped down and it's not changed anywhere along that, it will feed all the way to your output. So again, this is just a dummy node. I just wanted to let you know because I didn't want you to see that level node and think that I'm tweaking this value, because I'm not. That's the really important thing. When we come over here to our value is based on real world measurement, we don't have to tweak it. We just have that value and we place that in. And so again, where I'm getting those values, you can get them online. I trust this place here very well. So again, I brought this in, sampled the values, and I work with them like that. And so Substance Painter, let's go back over to Substance Painter, has this as well. So if we take a look at that copper, so I have copper selected. If we come over here to our material, you can see that our channels, we have diffuse, roughness, and metal. Here's our diffuse uniform color. So if we take a look at this color, this right here is the sampled actual color. And this was actually done. This is one of our presets that come with it. You can actually set these up yourself if you want to create one. So again, if I wanted to create iron, I would do that. I would have that in here. I did that, but this is a new build, so I lost it. But what you would do is just go to that chart, sample the color, place it into the RGB, and then set that as the color, and then you could just take the metallic, put it all the way up to 1, and hit OK. So what we're looking at here, and another way to illustrate this is we're looking at copper. We've got metal. Our metal slider's all the way up at 1. We're not worried about roughness. That's totally up to you. That's, you know, completely subjective. And then we're looking at this color value. So that color value, again, is a sampled color. So if we come over to here on our chart, copper, we got that sampled value right here of a real-world measured scale. And if we go ahead and take a look at our channels, we have our metal, pure white. So the shader looks at this and says, okay, that's pure white. I need to get a reflectance value. I'm going to get that from the diffuse. So when we come over here to our diffuse, this is the value that's being used as the reflectance, F0. And again, just to kind of hit that home, if we go back, we're talking this here. And so like I said, all materials are going to have that reflectance value. So again, even if I do something like, let's just go ahead and let's turn off this layer. I'm going to hit M to go back to my material. I'm going to select my fill layer and hit plastic matte, or here, plastic glossy. So here's plastic glossy. At the F0, it's going to have a certain value, and then it's going to feed off to the Fresnel. Now, we had talked about that just a second ago here when we were talking about this. Where am I getting this stuff? So hard-coded value, not setting them out. We don't have to worry about this. And another good read is right here on the feeding a physically based workflow. And so if we come down here, you can see that good rules for specular color range for dielectric materials are, you know, again, no value under 0.02. You know, it gives you ranges for common gemstones, common liquids. The only time you're going to see something a little bit different, so most of the time it's going to be like 0.04, unless it's something like water or something, then it'll be like 0.02. But a really good point here is when you're not finding a reference for a dielectric material, setting a value set a value to about 0.04 around plastic, and this is going to work for you like most of the time. So you're going to see, you know, some different values here. So that's where we're getting that hard-coded value here, 4% or, you know, 0.04% here, plastic. That's what we're looking at. And so again, that's hard-coded. We don't have to worry about that. So when it comes down to it, what we're seeing here is that we end up having this really somewhat simplistic workflow where, you know, we have these values. We're getting a diffuse value for our color value for our metal. That's our reflectance. We get that from a measured value. We tell something it's either black or white, metal or not, here in our map. And then we go through, and our roughness is where we can really get truly artistic with this kind of thing. And so just to kind of run you through this graph on kind of what I did with this, so you can see how I did this, is I started here with basically a couple materials. So this right here was my wood. This right here is my iron. This right here is kind of like my burlap, and this right here is like the hemp for the bow. So I kind of was trying to look at some kind of like medieval crossbow reference stuff. And so this right here was the image I started with. So remember I told you I downloaded that online. Then I went through the process of going through some levels here. And then I kind of went through some high and low ranges. So in order to get this to look a bit more PBR correct, so if we kind of look at this, you can see that, you know, we got all this dark detail in here. We don't want this. So I did a level, you know, just a grayscale to kind of start to kind of, and another levels to kind of just build myself a mask. Then I kind of have that inverted here. So now you can see that I'm just targeting those dark areas. And, you know, with that levels, brought those down. And then I'm going to blend those. So here I'm just using an add linear dodge over top of the original. So here's the original. And then here it is with just those highlights just kind of brought up. I brought those levels up because remember, I didn't want those to be below 30. In that RGB. And so again, I go ahead and I hit this little icon here, this little information, and I can scroll in and I can just mouse over and I can look at those RGB values now, and I can measure those guys, and I can see, you know, what's right or wrong about that. And so it's, you know, those are the kind of things I'm thinking about. Did the same thing for some of these brighter areas. I wanted to kind of remove some of this. So again, grayscale conversion, used levels here to kind of just create me a mask, and then I took the output white and just brought it down. And then again, just went through the process here of just doing, again, I did another subtract to put that over top. So this is the texture. Let's just kind of zoom in. This is what I ended up with for that albedo, and this is what I started with. So this right here is not PBR safe. This isn't good. There's too many dark values and all this kind of stuff. And this is what we want to have. And then, so I just went through and just, you know, I have the normal map for that wood, stuff like that. Basically, I just create myself a full material. And so this material here is just piping out, like I told you, my diffuse, a roughness, a metal. See, metal, wood, black, nothing, no, definitely not metal, and so on. And then once I have all these materials, again, here is my iron. So I have that base material. All that is a color. So if we just select it, you can see here it's just a value that's based off the chart that I showed you. To give me that reflectance value. I've got my normal, piping that through my material. So now that I have all these materials, I just come into my material color blend node here, just scroll out. I just feed it an SVG map here. So I just did that bake. Let me just show you that real quick. Trying not to make this stream so long. So if I come over here to UV to SVG, and then I had one that had all my materials, and then just set those guys to the material color ID, just got some random colors here, and then I just plug them in, and then in order to put a material, like for instance my chrome, if I come over here to my chrome, which I've got placed into, I think that's material 2 there, so I come over here to material 2, hit my color picker, and then just pick the value that I want to set for chrome like this, and then it adds that material to that area. So it's real simple. And then I just went through the process of just kind of feeding in my material color blends. So if you kind of look at your material filters blending, here's where we're going to have our material color blend node. And so this is going to allow me to take something like a mask generator, which we have some new mask generators. So we have, which one did I use a lot of? I used the, bear with me here, it was the edge, excuse me, it was the actual metal edgeware. So we have a new node here that's based off actual grunge maps and stuff. Gives you some really nice results. And so I would drag that in, feed in like my curvature, my normal map, my curvature, my AO map to kind of drive this effect, and then just feed that here into my material color blend. And so now we have like this dirt or edge effect. And now with that material color blend, we can go in and we can actually choose how that mask is going to affect those channels. So in our case, we came over to metallic, and like I said, for dirt, I brought it down just a little bit because that dirt is going to affect that metallic channel just a little bit. How's it going to affect my roughness? Well, here it's going to affect the roughness a great deal, so I have that pulled down as well. And then in my diffuse channel, I can actually pick the color for that dirt and so on. And then so once I just chain a bunch of these effects together, and as we come on down the line here, you can see that in the end, we end up getting the maps that we need. So we have our diffuse color here, we have our roughness, our metal, and our normal map. Now, like I told you, one last thing we'll talk about here is like that curvature type detail and all that kind of stuff. So you can try to add some of that type of detail to your map, and I did, as you can see here, just be sure again that it's not too dark. So you have this type of information, you then want to supply an ambient occlusion. So at the very end of my shader, to create this full workflow, I've got diffuse, like I said, roughness, metal, normal, and then finally I have an ambient occlusion. And so this right here is basically going to be my ambient occlusion map, which is going to give me those dark details back. So the way the shader system works is it wants you to extrapolate those dark kind of occluded areas out into an ambient occlusion map. And then so when I actually do view my outputs in 3D here, you can see the channel slots. Here, let me do this. If I just try to like bring a image over here, just kind of give this pop up, you can see these are the channels that are actually working here inside of the actual PBR shader in the 3D viewport in Substance Designer. So ambient, diffuse, nothing in the height, metallic, normal, and again we got a roughness. Here's our ambient occlusion, and then we have like our own latitude, longitude kind of image. So here's the crossbow that we ended up with. I can go over to I have this bunch of these I've got in my library here, I've got a bunch of HDR images here, so I can actually just start to drag and drop these in, and you can see that, without changing my lighting or anything like that, I can get, totally different looks here, and you can see that, it looks predictable. You get predictable reflection, and you get predictable results, which is what this whole system is all about, even though I'm changing the lighting completely. So even though I'm getting, different looks here, I still get a very good looking asset. Depending on what kind of lighting I change, it doesn't matter, because of the way the maps are authored and the way the system is working. It's all driven off scientific measured values, plus it's also driven off the guidelines that we've been working with. And so I can just go ahead and change these maps all I want, and it's not going to hurt anything. And so I'm still going to get that same exact kind of consistent look as I move across all of my all across all of the textures and things. So I guess what we'll do is we'll go ahead and just kind of close up this stream now. Probably went a bit over as I typically do. So I really want to appreciate everybody for joining me. It was really fun to talk about this stuff. In the forums for Algorithmic, in the announcements section, I actually have this stream. I have a post for the stream. So if you have any questions, just post them in there, and I'll do my very best to answer them, and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Also, I'm going to this stream will be archived, and you'll be able to view this on our YouTube channel. So again, just want to thank everybody for coming, and I'll see you on the next stream.